improving conversion rate by simplifying the buying process in the same way that you'd go to a store or ask a sales associate a few questions. They'd recommend a product. It's all about just making things easier. And you know better than anybody, like CRO is about improving the customer experience, addressing objections and challenges, and simplifying it. The other goal is to accelerate list growth. So that's, we capture an email, we capture an SMS. It's all optional if you want, and you don't need to do either of those. We even released a feature to capture crypto wallet addresses as brands move towards Web3 and NFTs. And then the third part is just zero-party data. So
this podcast is brought to you by Bambassadors.com, the go-to platform for e-commerce brands to create video reviews that boost social proof and sales on TikTok and beyond. Get your first video review created and posted by a genuine creator, completely free, no strings attached, and no credit card required at Bambassadors.com.
Welcome to the EcomXFactor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of EcomXFactor, Yaron Bin.
Hi again, good morning. How are you?
awesome. I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited to this conversation. Quiz funnels is a topic that I've been researching and implementing for a while now, and it's an honor and it's a pleasure to discuss with someone who has built a platform for building quiz funnels, and I'm sure that you can contribute a lot after and insight. So I'm excited.
Likewise. Yeah, thanks. You wrote the ultimate guide to quiz funnels, and thanks for the mention of pre-hook. So I have to earn it, and happy to share whatever, and would love to share best practices and what you're doing, and I can share what I'm seeing.
Awesome. Cool. So before we get started and diving into quiz funnels and their importance, especially after the iOS update and stuff like that. So can you please share a bit of background about yourself, and when did you start the pre-hook and why?
Yeah. So I started building pre-hook in May of 2020. So pretty much right in the start of the lockdown. It was me and my two friends. We're actually part of the founding team at Jungle Scout, which is an Amazon product research tool. So we've been working together since the fall of 2015 in the e-commerce SaaS space. Realized that we did want to do something together, work on a SaaS tool, e-commerce SaaS tool, and shift slightly towards Shopify. And what we realized is Shopify merchants have a very different challenge than what Amazon merchants have to deal and what they're solving for. So we did spend a lot of time with Amazon shoppers. Amazon listings are really focused on search intent. So you know exactly what you're selling, and you're building a listing specifically for this type of customer, these challenges, selling this blue widget or whatever it is. So you're really focusing on a very tight known problem. But Shopify merchants have a different problem, which is that they don't necessarily know what problem they're solving for. So they might have even just a handful of SKUs, or even just if it's just one SKU, say a multivitamin, what is that person looking for? And speaking with merchants, we realized that they didn't necessarily know how to solve that. They didn't know enough about their customers, and realizing that it was a challenge, that there wasn't really a great solution at the time. So merchants were using Typeform, for example, which functionally Typeform is a survey tool, and you can ask questions, you can capture leads, but it just doesn't integrate with Shopify or Klaviyo or Attentive, some of these other key e-commerce tech stack tools. We started building it and then launched in 2021. We're in mid 2022 now. And certainly, as you've mentioned, iOS, a lot has changed in the marketing landscape and the tech and what merchants are focusing on.
Initially, the idea was to help store owners understand more about their customers. This was the initial idea behind building pre-hook? Yeah,
I mean, it's really threefold. One is to improve conversion rate. I mean, ultimately, when we're talking merchants that's the primary thing. You know this with CRO, even just incremental improvements will have outsized impacts on revenue growth. And that's really the primary concern, obviously. Improving conversion rate by simplifying the buying process in the same way that you'd go to a store or ask a sales associate a few questions, they'd recommend a product. It's all about just making things easier. And you know better than anybody, CRO is about improving the customer experience, addressing objections and challenges, and simplifying it. So that's one thing. The other goal is to accelerate list growth. So that's, we capture an email, we capture an SMS. It's all optional if you want, and you don't need to do either of those. We even released a feature to capture crypto wallet addresses as brands move towards Web3 and NFTs. And then the third part is just zero party data. So customer data, that information that customers are willingly and proactively sharing with you. And so that's kind of like the third value that we offer merchants.
Nice. And I would like to dive deeper into each one of them in a moment, but can you elaborate regarding the difference between you guys and other platforms? Because you mentioned Typeform and you mentioned the main difference is the fact that you integrate with Klaviyo and it's a Shopify native app, which is awesome. But what are like the differences between you guys and other competitors?
In the Shopify space, there are definitely great tools. Octane, a lot of merchants use Octane. There are others as well, Revenue Hunt. And, these days, to be honest, the tool set offers a lot of the same, like as the tools develop and we as Shopify app developers are building towards this, there's great feature parity. Where I try to differentiate is in terms of like being a partner with merchants, as in building out their quiz funnels, working on the integrations. A lot of the value comes post quiz. So that's what are you doing to communicate with merchants after you capture their lead, like using the data that you know. And so this is ultimately moving more towards personalization. And so that's where I try to help in just sharing, like, here's maybe like the blueprint of what the customer experience might be as you engage them, as you hook them into, hey, take this quiz. Here's what you can get in return. Here's what you would get out of it. And then the on-site experience after the quiz, here's the product that we recommend based on your responses. Here's why you would like it. And then the post-quiz, which is, hey, thanks for taking the quiz. Here's whatever we promised you, your personal recommendation, your discount, your access to this club. And then you're trying to convert on the revenue or SMS afterwards.
It seems to me that it's very powerful. The fact that you help the merchants and give them advice regarding what would work is very powerful. And I saw in the Shopify store, in the Shopify App Store, the amount of praise that you guys are getting regarding the customer support. It's amazing. It's mind blowing. So definitely a differentiator.
Thank you.
So
thank you. Yeah. The classic, what Paul Graham is often quoted, do things that don't scale. It might not scale, but it is, like one of the best ways to, for us, and we do get a lot from learning about the customers and in terms of like feature development or challenges, like what documentation needs to be there, what questions they have. So we certainly find value out of it. And then also just kind of fun because we're all in the trenches and trying to improve and grow and succeed as entrepreneurs. Can
you share a bit of like juicy stuff regarding like tactical? So let's cover maybe in the 3 different pillars that you mentioned 3 different pillars: increasing conversions and increasing engagement and collecting zero-party data. And then you also talked about different placements for the quiz, like post-purchase, before the purchase, maybe in email, like for net promoter score, stuff like that. So let's try to break it down. And based on what you guys are seeing, I know it's context dependent and every store has their own persona and every persona reacts differently and everything should be tested. But based on your broad perspective, what are the best practices and things that you're seeing are working better, producing better results?
Great question. All right. This is a dialogue because you had a lot of good ideas in your post as well. The first, I think, is establishing like where in the funnel would be most helpful. So for some, for example, like a Stitch Fix or a Scentbird, these are like subscription-based e-commerce brands. What you know about the customers is so critical to the lifetime value that you can establish, because lifetime value for those type of brands is dictated by what you're sending them, every month or every quarter or whatever it is. And the more that you know about the customer, obviously the more important in terms of like what they're receiving and their customer satisfaction. But other brands, for example, it is also really important at the top of the funnel to get your customers or visitors to take the quiz. And so one example is T-Lixer. T-Lixer is, we've been working with the co-founder Daniel, and they've been very successful with their quiz. So T-Lixer is an adaptogen brand, basically like ancient mushrooms to help heal different needs. So there's this element of like, what challenge do you face, whether it is anxiety or sleeplessness or joint pain or any other bodily things, where there's a certain set of adaptogen teas that you have. Then there's also like the flavor profile or the health elements. And so it's important for the brand to understand that in terms of like, the post-quiz flow that I was talking about and like how the brand is kind of like unfolded. So they do a really good job first in how they're merchandising the quiz. They're sending people to the quiz from the hero image, from the header nav, from an exit intent pop-up. There's a paid landing page. So there are all these different ways to get in, and there's enough data now. I think they've 2x their opt-in rate. So they know, for example, that not only are we getting this data, because if you look at many Shopify stores, you might see a pop-up like save 15% off, enter your email, or join our club and get access to early, whatever. But not all leads are the same. You're just getting an email, but you have no idea. Even maybe the most basic thing, like if you're a clothing brand, is it a male or female that you're buying for, or is it yourself or a gift? And so I think T-Elixir does a great job also of understanding like what data they need in order to have a better customer experience. So those things might be what challenges they're facing or what success looks like to them. Because ultimately, as marketers, as e-commerce marketers, we're trying to help our customers achieve, their aspirational end goal. And the only way that you can do that successfully is knowing where they currently are and knowing where they want to go. And then to bridge that gap, you're inserting your brand, you're inserting this specific product to help them address these problems. And here's how it will help you. So yeah, that's the merchandising. So basically getting people in from different ways, knowing the economics of, what can we pay in order to get somebody to this page to take the quiz, because there's this completion rate. So we know that this is our current cost per lead. If we get people in here, our cost per lead can go down here. We can spend up to X to get this person in there. So those are kind of like the calculations that they're doing, I think, to kind of like speed up this quiz funnel just by sending more paid traffic into these paid landing pages. And then on the bottom end, what a conversion rate. So they're seeing more people spend more who go through a quiz than those who do not. So the average order value, the lifetime value of somebody who takes a quiz per Google Analytics is higher than those that do not, which is a testament to, the email and the SMS, that they're seeing more revenue per lead from those who take a quiz.
Nice. And specifically in this case or in other cases, do most of the brands, they create a personalized results page based on a certain question that was asked during the quiz, or normally they just segment differently in the emails, or they send to a generic result page, or how do most brands operate?
Most brands would operate in one of two ways. And these are mainly the ones that I'm dealing with who use Prehook. The first is to have a product recommendation immediately after the quiz. And this is dynamically generated. So, on the back end of Prehook, we're linking each quiz response, say like, are you a male or female? And if it's a male, then you're kind of like linking all of your male based clothing or fragrances, female likewise. And then at the end, it's a tally. So whatever has accumulated the most points would be recommended. The other way is it might be like redirecting to a product description page. And so the benefit there is that it's a highly finely tuned, you're going through with your CRO lens and you're saying, okay, this person, it has, addresses these objections or questions, challenges, whatever, but you're taking them to a product description page. And so that's how, and so one example there is Beard Brand, which is a kind of a men's healthcare brand. They have a quiz like, what type of beardsman are you? So there are 6 different personas based on what type of beardsman you are. You're taken to a different collection of, say, you're the urban pioneer. You're getting a bundle created for that type of persona. That's more of like a lead capture data play, and then they're taking them to the page. So yeah, to answer your question, dynamic recommendation right afterwards, or kind of like a product description page.
With regard to tactical stuff, so I'm just wondering, there are so many different features that one can leverage in these quizzes. Different layouts, using video questions during the quiz, showing the progress bar. Do you think it makes a huge difference, or these just minute changes? And what is important is getting the idea and the strategy in place when building the quiz.
I think there's the bells and whistles are nice, but ultimately it's about the customer experience. So the way that we were trying to focus on it was the merchant customer experience, to make it simple to create and add. Not a lot of brands have like tech staff on hand. So to the extent you can just make it drag and drop or paste a quiz, no code required, the better. So that was one thing. But I think from a merchant's perspective, the priority should be getting people through the quiz, getting them to complete the quiz, because for the most part, brands find success with the email opt-in at the end. You can't necessarily like say, hey, like upfront, what's your email? And you're like, well, why am I giving you an email? What are you going to send me? There's no buy-in. And so you kind of like need to start small, with those easier questions. And then you ramp up to some of the more intimate questions that people might be more on guard to answer, like personal, like a birthday, for example. And then of course your email. But yeah, so the takeaway there, I think, is every question should have a purpose, because again, from a CRO perspective, you're trying to minimize clicks, minimize time spent on, minimize the ways that your customer needs to think, right? So you're just trying to get them to the end so you can capture a lead. Typeform has a really nice data point. And as you'd imagine, it's a declining curve as, you have number of questions on the x-axis and completion rate on the y-axis. The more questions, the less likely to complete. So, every question needs to be really thoughtful and purposeful.
For example, I don't know if it's correct, but I heard like myths about people that added just like a calculation page between the email capturing and the results page. So they just added like a calculation page, like a delay of 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Like, do you have this in the platform? And if so, does it make any impact? Or it just not really?
We don't. So I don't know. I can't say whether it does make a difference or not, but I do know, like, I think Apple did this, right? Like when it's loading, they have this spinning wheel, at least so people think, all right, it makes no difference, but at least there's something going on in the background. So yeah, it's an interesting point, but we don't have that, and frankly, it's probably not like on our roadmap right now, because I think there are things that can move the needle more so. Yeah.
For sure.
Quick favor, guys. If you enjoy these shows and have been a listener for quite some time now, we would really appreciate it if you could take the time to give us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcast app may be. Having lots of ratings and audience feedback makes our show become more visible across multiple platforms. And it also supports our mission of helping as many people as possible to become better marketers and better entrepreneurs. So if you're not driving and it wouldn't be dangerous, pause this thing right now and give us an honest review over your podcast app. And we will love you even more than we already do. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Have you seen anything that surprised you with regards to using the quiz funnel in a very innovative way that isn't straightforward and obvious?
Yeah, good question. Well, yeah. So one piece of feedback that a merchant shared with me is that, and this is a baby brand, like baby clothing brand. She said that she actually asks, is it for yourself or is it for a gift? And so understanding that is a very different mentality. And she saw that if it was a buying for a gift, she shortens the welcome series. And by shortening it, it has reduced the unsubscribe rate. And you don't obviously want an unsubscribe rate because you want to like kind of maintain the deliverability, and you want to maintain your list, because if you can segment on the back end of Klaviyo, like who your gift buyers are and who they aren't, gift buyers, like right now it might be like Father's Day or Mother's Day or the holidays. Like those people you want to send like, gift promos. By understanding who's buying as a gift, it's more transactional, it's shorter to the point, and then you're segmenting them on the back end and not kind of like overloading them. So that's again just like one small example where once you're understanding the customer's mindset, what they're looking for, why they signed up, you're changing the experience, and then you're reaping the benefits of it.
So when you start working with a store owner, what are the questions, like your go-to questions with regard to for helping them to understand how to build out the quiz?
Yeah, I think it goes towards starting with the end goal in mind. And so, of course, it's like, we track revenue. So you're going to see what revenue you're getting based on the quiz. Somebody who takes a quiz, you're seeing your list growth, and then you're seeing your zero party data. It comes through as a custom property in Klaviyo or Omnisend, Attentive, or PostScript. But yeah, the question I think that's most important is like, how would you use the data? What are the questions on the back end that are helpful for your segmentation? So it might be what their problems are. Or do they have dry skin, rosacea, acne, blackheads, whatever, if it's a skincare brand? What are their goals? Is it more energy? Is it lower anxiety, better sleep? If it's a multivitamin, what are their habits? Like it might be, fragrance or preference. Are they planning to use it for this cologne or perfume for going out or for the office? Do they like woodsy or sporty? And so all these things are ultimately like, you can ask in different ways, but on the back end, you're going to be using it towards your segmentation. And then from there, once you have the better segmentation in your automations or your campaigns, then you're sending them, different products. So more relevant offers or different product education or different parts of your brand you're putting forward to merchandise your brand and stand out. And so that relevancy impacts the numbers of you on the marketing side in terms of engagement in email. And then also there's some really interesting stats from Accenture. I think it was Accenture and Segment, the customer data platform. Basically, customers are looking for personalization, willing to share their data. I forget the exact stat. It might be like 70 or 80% of customers are willing to share customer data, share things about themselves if on the other end, there's the promise of more personalized offers. And then not only is there better engagement, but willing to spend more, so higher AOV, and purchase more, so higher lifetime value. So the numbers certainly bear out that it's worth it to make this effort to capture the data so you can personalize, and then actually to execute on it to send personalized marketing. You
mentioned the email, so I'm wondering if any of your customers use quizzes as an email. I mean, they send a quiz in the email after they already acquired the customer. So let's say, do you see this often?
Yes, that's a great point. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention that Telixer does as well. So even if they have a list, they might not know a lot about the person. So yeah, that is exactly a great use case where, in Klaviyo, for example, you can segment out people who do not have a quiz ID or who have not executed, the event, take a quiz. And then from there, send them a quiz. And it might be a different quiz. It might be like a shorter quiz and more of like about the data play. But yes, that's a great point that you're just sending the quiz, because it's also another engagement mechanism, a fun way. And then you can also maybe build out your own list by say, hey, share with your friends. Because ultimately with a quiz, we want to learn about ourselves. And then that's a fun way to help people kind of share and there's this viral element to it.
Sounds great. This is very interesting. Do you mind sharing more case studies or wins from other brands, maybe from verticals that we didn't mention yet?
Like what brands or what types of companies would do well with a quiz? And I think it's really like anything outside of a one SKU brand. And so even a brand, like one quiz that I love, it's not a pre-hook quiz and it's custom, is Helix Sleep. So Helix is a mattress brand. And so they don't have a whole wide range of stuff. Like say, for example, like a wine store would be really complicated. So a quiz is there to help recommend a product. The Helix Sleep quiz is a really simple quiz. It's beautifully done, beautifully designed, and it's very straight to the point. I think it's like 5 questions. But what I like about it is that they start with the basics. So this is kind of like what I was saying about like smaller micro conversions to start. So, what's your name? And then they use recall to kind of like personalize it. So, hey, again, what are your size? Like, are you height and weight? And then it goes a little bit deeper into who's going to be using it. Like, what are you shopping for? Because it's anywhere from like a twin size to a California King, which is like a huge bed. And then it's more towards like preferences. How do you sleep? What do you like it, soft, medium, or firm? And then where do you have pain? And so this is kind of like at a macro level, some of the things that a quiz is great for. And then if, we were discussing the quiz experience and like what the page after the quiz looks like, it's a recommended product. It's regurgitating, sharing again, the things that I responded to in the quiz. So that's the rationale of them kind of like ingesting what I shared and then using it to recommend a product. The post-quiz experience is obviously tailored towards it. So, hey, you have these challenges and this pain, and maybe it's like educational stuff around the pain that you're talking about. But there are obviously infinite ways in which you could use the data. But when you are talking about $1,000 plus product, even just armed with 5 data points can dramatically change how you are putting your brand in front of the consumer. And then think about you standing out against, say, Casper or Tufted Needle or any of these other brands that might not have this data. It's a huge competitive advantage as well. So that's just another example, but a lot of, as marketers say, build a list as soon as you can, or that should be like the primary focus. And I might add an asterisk that it's also not just building a list, but also what you know about that list and what data you're gathering. So starting as soon as possible in terms of capturing data is so critical. That's where we're seeing a lot of success from the merchants, at least in terms of ROI from the quiz.
And I think we talked about it like at the beginning, but we didn't elaborate about this, about the change that happened since the iOS update. The fact that collecting zero-party data has become even more important, because now when Facebook, for example, if you're running Facebook ads and the pixel doesn't know as much information as it used to know, so now it's your responsibility as a store owner to collect the data, and it has become even more of a necessity. I mean, like two years ago, not many people spoke about quiz funnels and collecting zero-party data. Everybody was talking about third-party data because this was the game. But now you hear these terms come up because it has become a necessity. So have you seen a huge spike in demand for your product since the iOS update and moving away towards more privacy?
Yeah. We have, and we launched in 2021, so it wasn't like a huge amount of history like before and after, because I think it was like mid 2021. But I think from conversations with merchants as well, it's a strategic shift because cost per clicks are increasing, cost per acquisition is increasing, access to data, and then the ability to kind of like scale while relying on these paid channels, which was historically a blueprint for DTC brands, is no longer available. So it's a shift towards owned media, owning the direct relationship, and then building around that and relying on channels where you know that you can reach them, which is email or SMS. So I think that net change has definitely occurred. I mean, it seems to be quite a difficult challenge for e-commerce merchants, layer on top of that, all the supply chain issues and then the increasing costs and kind of like the lower barrier to entry for new products to come on the market. It's hard. And so relying less on paid and more on owned is something that we're seeing and kind of playing a part in.
Yes. And with regards to the data collection, do you see store owners nerding out and adding like pixel firing events based on a question, or adding Google tags to specific events, stuff like that? Or do people just rely mostly on the integration and segmentation of Klaviyo and don't do like this very, might sound like an overkill, depends on the scale, but do you see people doing this type of optimizations?
Yes. Definitely the more sophisticated ones. And so the way it works is, like, as you mentioned, you are basically sending events through. Each quiz response is an event. And so what you get on the back end is some really cool ways, because it's structured data, as in it's easy, it comes in uniform, as opposed to, say, sales tickets or support tickets, where you kind of have to parse through it and then categorize and clean it up, whatever. Structured data makes it very easy to manipulate and pull out data-driven insights. So one merchant, and this is for like a female cosmetics line, basically they were looking at people who are of this particular profile based on their response, have a different consumer behavior. So different average order value, more likely to purchase and more likely to spend more. And so when you can get that at a very granular level, then it becomes like almost a cheat code in terms of how you're segmenting and who aren't necessarily your VIP yet based on transaction history, but who show the tendencies of this particular profile are the ideal customer profiles that we want. So that's one thing. Google Analytics is one great way, but then as you mentioned, Klaviyo is essentially like a default CRM in many ways, data warehouse. So you can do a lot to slice and dice data there.
Cool. Awesome. And during the conversation, you also mentioned that you're offering a connection to MetaMask or Web3 wallets. And I'm wondering, I started investigating the Web3 landscape. I think I find it very interesting on a personal level. And I'm wondering, are you guys seeing any trends with regards to Web3, or are you guys thinking of allocating more resources towards that, or it's just a feature that you wanted to add and you're not really diving into that?
Yeah, it was kind of a feature we wanted to add. Honestly, not seeing a lot of usage there. And it wasn't in MetaMask integration. It was more just like add your wallet address, it's 24 character. So at this way, at least a brand, if they want to, can airdrop, send for free, an NFT. I think, honestly, we are very early, obviously. And this is, I haven't checked ETH prices today, but I imagine, like $1,000 right now. And Shopify is clearly making inroads with NFT. They have their NFT beta program. Right now, it's only for Shopify Plus brands. And we actually did start building out an NFT analytics tool. It's a whole other story. But for our types of brands, I think it's especially early because not only do you have to have a brand with a large loyal following, but the customer also needs to be on-ramped enough to have a wallet, have an address, know how to do it, and actually care. So we haven't really seen those brands yet, but I know Shopify Plus brands are doing it, and Shopify is doing a lot towards doing that, both kind of like on the website, on their Shop Pay app, on their in-person point of sale system. They actually did that at South by this year here. Anyway, I do think NFTs will play a role, whether loyalty or community, but it's a little bit early now from what I'm saying.
I agree. Cool, Gen. It was a very valuable and insightful conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to share or questions that I forgot to ask?
Happy to share my contact info. Find me on Twitter, Gen Furukawa, Furukawa, or please feel free to reach out to me, gen@prehook.com. Happy to, like I said, help you build out a quiz, a strategy, offer an extended free trial to 45 days so that you can get a real good feel for free if a quiz is helpful in improving conversion rate, in capturing data so you can know your customer better and have better segments in Klaviyo or whatever your tech stack is. So yeah, I just encourage you to reach out, and if not even speaking with me or any other tools, understand and focus on this customer data play, because I think it's only going to get more important.
Nice. And let's just clarify a few technical stuff. So at the moment, you're offering a solution only for Shopify. And the other thing I wanted to ask for the listeners, is there any difference if they approach you via the Shopify App Store or directly via the website, or it's the same offer?
It is the same offer. Yeah. Cool. But in order to redeem it, it's not automated. There's no coupon code. So just reach out to me.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of pleasure. And let's keep in touch. And I encourage people to start checking out Prehook and quiz funnels in general. I think it's a very powerful tool, which is overlooked. It was overlooked mainly from technical perspective, in my opinion. But when you guys are offering such a seamless solution, drag and drop, basically, so I don't see why not. I think it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi guys, this is Yaron again. Just a few more things before you take off. Number one, if you want to learn more about e-commerce and marketing, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, which is called EcomXFactor Official. Number two, check out our Facebook group, which is called EcomXFactor Marketing and E-commerce Mastermind. This is a great place to ask questions and connect with other business owners. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues, plus leave a review at your favorite podcast app.